Hello everyone, and welcome to a brief but very special minisode of The Trail Went Cold. I'm your host Robin Warder, and I am pleased to say that we have reached a very special moment for our podcast, because for the first time, the trail on one of our cases has no longer gone cold. Back on January 11th, we released a minisode about the unsolved disappearance of Pamela Butler, a 47-year-old computer systems analyst with the Environmental Protection Agency who mysteriously vanished from her home in Washington, D.C. If you haven't listened to this minisode yet, I'd recommend going back and checking it out, but here's a brief synopsis of the case. On Valentine's Day in 2009, Pam was supposed to take her mother out to dinner, but never showed up. Her family eventually checked out her home and discovered she wasn't there. What's particularly strange is that Pam's house was covered by 24-hour security cameras, but while the surveillance footage showed her entering the house on February 12th, none of it showed her leaving. However, there was a blind spot, as a couple of windows in the dining room were not covered by the cameras, and one of those windows was unlocked. And strangely, the sheets from her bed were also missing. The main person of interest was Pam's 44-year-old boyfriend, Jose Rodriguez-Cruz, who claimed that Pam broke up with him right before she went missing. The surveillance footage showed Jose entering and exiting Pam's home on multiple occasions in the days following her disappearance while carrying bags, but he claimed that he never saw Pam at all during this time period. Pam's family always believed that Jose knew more than he was telling, but he maintained his innocence, and there was no hard evidence that a crime had been committed. Well, if this was an episode of Unsolved Mysteries, this is the moment when the late great Robert Stack would have uttered the word, update. On April 8, 2017, less than 3 months after we released our minisode about this case, it was announced that Jose Rodriguez-Cruz was arrested and charged with the first-degree murder of Pamela Butler. There are many key details which have yet to be released publicly, but here's what we know so far. And believe it or not, this story has become a lot crazier than anyone could have anticipated. Just 2 months ago, a new detective, a 28-year-old veteran named Michael Fulton, was assigned to the case. This past summer, Pam's family was able to have her legally declared dead, and while her body has still not been found, Fulton has uncovered a lot of incriminating information from Jose's past, which compelled the police to finally make an arrest. In the previous minisode, I mentioned that Jose had a prior police record for domestic violence against an ex-girlfriend, but he was never formally charged with any crime, and never served any jail time. Well, a lot more details have been released, and it sounds like this barely even scratches the surface of what a violent monster this guy is. It turns out that Jose has a pretty extensive and terrifying history of domestic violence against multiple women. He has 2 prior marriages, and his second wife told authorities that he frequently assaulted her. Jose's first wife was 26-year-old Marta Heidi Rodriguez, but the most shocking new revelation in this case is that she has also gone missing. In 1989, Jose and Marta were estranged, and she was living with a roommate in Arlington, Virginia. On March 29th, Jose confronted Marta outside her home, and the two of them got into a struggle, before Jose attempted to force Marta into his car and abduct her. A police officer just happened to be in the area to witness this, so he intervened. Jose was arrested, charged with abduction, and released on a $25,000 bond. However, the case against Jose was dismissed when Marta failed to show up in court to testify on May 18th. 1 week later, Marta was reported missing by her roommate. The last time Marta was seen alive, she was walking toward a bus stop outside St. Elizabeth's Hospital in Washington, D.C., where she worked as a nurse's aide. Well, here's where the story gets truly insane. There were no leads on this case at all until October of 2000, when investigators received a report that Marta was alive and living in Miami-Dade County, Florida. The local authorities went to check this woman out, confirmed she was Marta Heidi Rodriguez, and her missing persons investigation was closed. Well, guess what? It turns out that Marta was actually the sister of Jose's second wife. Jose had provided this woman with enough crucial information about Marta that she was able to start living under Marta's identity. Wow. I have no idea why she would agree to do something like that, but given Jose's violent history, maybe she did it out of fear. But whatever her reasons, the ruse worked. Marta's case was forgotten about for 16 years, and the investigation into her disappearance has recently been reopened. So it looks like Jose is now the prime suspect in yet another unsolved missing persons case. Anyway, Jose made his first appearance in court on April 10th, where prosecutor Deborah Symes painted him as a very jealous man who had an extensive history of violence towards women. In a previous domestic abuse case, Jose had allegedly told a police officer, "I'd rather see her dead than with someone else." So the state believes that Jose probably snapped and killed Pam when she attempted to break up with him. Jose's public defender, Judith Pipe, claims that there is no evidence that her client committed a crime, or that Pamela Butler is even dead. Nonetheless, the court was convinced by the state's assertion that Jose was a danger to the community, so bail was denied. Without a body, the state's case against Jose will be very circumstantial and rely heavily on revelations about his past history of domestic violence. There are some witnesses who seem to have incriminating information about Jose, but were afraid to come forward until recently. One of these witnesses told police that 22 years ago, they found a letter in which Jose had written, I, Jose Angel Rodriguez-Cruz, am responsible for Marta's disappearance. This witness returned the letter to Jose and never saw it again. Another witness now claims that on the weekend of Pam's disappearance, Jose gave them a gun to hold for him. A friend of Jose's claimed they once heard him say, "It's easy to get rid of a body. If you dig a hole deep enough, no one will find it." There are apparently multiple people, including Jose's second wife, who have heard him talk about his ability to hide a body. There's very little physical evidence, but during the original investigation, a cadaver dog seemed to detect the scent of a decaying body in the rear passenger seat and trunk of Jose's car, and it also detected the scent in the washer-dryer area of Pam's home. Pam's cell phone was never found, but at the time of her disappearance, it was pinging off towers located near where Jose was living in Virginia. When he was questioned at the time, Jose made an odd remark about having a dream where he kept seeing Pam in Seneca Creek State Park. Police searched the park and never found anything, but it's worth noting that Pam's phone also pinged off cell towers near that particular location. Jose's preliminary hearing took place on April 24th, and some truly harrowing details were released about the domestic violence incident involving him and one of his former girlfriends. On January 9th, 2004, Jose allegedly duct-taped this woman's wrists, held a gun to her head, put a pillow over her face, and repeatedly sexually assaulted her. He then said, "I could kill you tomorrow, and no one would ever find your body. I can make your body disappear." If that wasn't enough, the victim's 3-year-old daughter was in the apartment while all this took place, and Jose kept the woman at bay by threatening to assault her daughter as well. While Jose was sleeping, the woman grabbed a knife and attempted to escape with her daughter. Jose then woke up and pulled out his gun, so she responded by stabbing him several times. The police soon got involved, but unfortunately, because this woman spoke very little English and had trouble describing what actually happened to her, she was the one who initially got arrested and charged with assault. So it sounds like that's the main reason why Jose was never charged with anything in connection to this incident. Some other new pieces of info were released during this hearing. Remember how I mentioned that one unlocked window in Pam's dining room which was not covered by the security cameras? Well, it turns out police found a piece of black plastic trash bag which had become torn off on the ledge. It's previously been established that Jose was carrying bags during the times the surveillance footage captured him entering and exiting Pam's home after she went missing. Well, it's now been revealed that he was also seen carrying a white bucket containing cleaning supplies. However, there's one part which confuses me, as most of the sources state that Jose visited Pam's home 3 times in the days following her disappearance. Yet a recent article I read from Fox 5 DC states that Jose visited her home 43 times. That doesn't sound quite right, so I have to wonder if it's just a typo or something. Anyway, Jose will remain in jail until his next hearing on July 28th. Investigators are currently working on strengthening their case against him, but I'm not sure there will be any more big developments until the hearing. At the moment, the case against Jose is very circumstantial, and if Pamela's remains are not found, this will mark the first time since 2010 that prosecutors in Washington, D.C. will attempt to try a murder case without a body. I'm a big proponent of the concept of innocent until proven guilty, but man, these recent revelations paint a pretty awful picture of Jose Rodriguez-Cruz. I never knew he had such a tumultuous history, and if even a small fraction of the things they've alleged about him are true, then he is an absolute monster who deserves to be off the streets, and it's a real tragedy that Pam crossed paths with this guy. I also hope that investigators can uncover the truth about what happened to Jose's first wife, Marta Heidi Rodriguez. The odds against a completely innocent man having 2 different spouses vanish without a trace are pretty astronomical. It sounds like Pamela Butler's family have come to terms with the fact that they're never going to see her again, but I am glad they are finally receiving closure. Pam's brother Derek has been such a tireless advocate for her case, and I'm really glad that her 85-year-old mother, Thelma, is receiving answers, as she was always fearful that she would not live long enough to learn the truth about what happened to her daughter. So the Trail Went Cold sends out their deepest sympathies to Pamela Butler's family and friends, and we sincerely hope they find peace. We'll be providing you with constant updates about what happens, so until next time, thanks for listening to our very first, but hopefully not our last, update minisode of The Trail Went Cold.